someone in power, ridiculing someone. That's not good. All right, censure. Please say censure. Censure is a verb to criticize sharply. Don't confuse this with censor, C-E-N-S-O-R, which means to ban. So we have the sentence is the judge censured the repeat offender for his criminal behavior. Typically, people who are censured probably need it because they've done something wrong. The synonym for censure is condemn and reproach. The opposite of that would be to praise and applaud. All right, so when we think of a rule breaker, someone who breaks the law, they need to be censured, right? Derided, they might have made a mistake and they're just getting made fun of. That's what deride means. All right, gamble, please say gamble. Gamble is a verb to frolic, to romp about playfully. This is G-A-M-B-O-L. To play, to caper, to rollick. Someone asked me last period, what does it mean to rollick? Just to freely run around having fun. Preschoolers like to gamble about on the playground. So if your word is gamble, what kind of things could you draw? Little stick figure running around in the leaves or something, having fun. Or you could just write the synonym for it or synonyms. All right, immolate, please say immolate. Immolate is a verb, guys. Get a load of this. To kill someone as a sacrificial victim, usually by fire. A word you probably won't see a whole lot, but when you see it, you're going to know what it means now. Some Buddhist monks immolated themselves in protest of the government's policies. All right, so immolate. Recondite, please say recondite. Recondite is an adjective difficult to understand, profound. Only a few students understood the recondite explanation of the theory. So again, you could draw, maybe a page and maybe someone looking confused. That would be good for that. All right, martinet, please say martinet. Martinet, thank you, is a noun, a strict disciplinarian, a taskmaster. All right, so the teacher was a martinet who never made exceptions to the rules. So someone, I think last period, we have to go by our handbook. We do need to be martinets by the handbook because if you start letting things go, well, where does it end? So I think that's a good example of that. All right, quagmire, please say quagmire. Quagmire is a noun, a swamp, a difficult or inextricable situation. It says the war was a political quagmire for the 3 U.S. presidents. It comes from the Middle English quag, meaning marsh or bog, as does the Old Norse myr, M-Y-R-R. So quagmire, you could literally draw a swamp, something you get tangled in. All right, jibe, please say jibe. Jibe is a verb to scoff, to ridicule. We have a lot of words that are kind of similar this week, don't we? Jibe, jeer, taunt, sneer. The opposite of jibe is to compliment and praise. Now get a load of this marriage. It says his favorite pastime was to jibe at everything his wife said. But that did not go over well. That would get old. So again, that would not be good. All right, agape, please say agape. Agape is an adjective, open mouth, surprised, agog, A-G-O-G. I would draw a little round face with a little round open mouth. Astonished. Even the judge was agape when the witness told the ridiculous story in court. Sometimes you may feel that way. Things are so ridiculous, you're just like, I can't believe it. Carcinogen, please say carcinogen. Carcinogen is a noun, causing cancer is what it means. It says benzene, a compound of gasoline, is a carcinogen. So if your word is carcinogen, what might you draw? Anything that you know is a carcinogen, causes cancer. Cigarette, yes, absolutely. Tobacco, yes. Olfactory, please say olfactory. Olfactory is an adjective pertaining to smell, right? So I would draw a nose. I'll just draw a big nose. If you have a cold, then your olfactory senses will not detect the gas leak, all right? So guys, those are the first 11. For the last, you need to go to the top one, and then you'll find the last 4. What is it? Yeah, it's I know it's up there. So you got the last one here, and this top one is where you need to go for these. So 12 is imperious. Please say imperious. Imperious is domineering and haughty. It's an adjective. Overbearing, arrogant, masterful. An antonym for that is servile or servile, as the Britons say, and submissive. The judge pronounced his findings in an imperious voice. So if your word is imperious, what could you draw to show someone's being haughty, domineering? Haughty, domineering, arrogant, overbearing. So what could you draw for that? Kind of hard to draw that. I would probably really want to write a synonym for that because I'm no artist there. All right, grotesque. Please say grotesque. Grotesque is an adjective. It means absurd, distorted. The boy made a grotesque face behind the teacher's back. So again, we see a lot of grotesque masks at Halloween, right? Someone's behavior could be grotesque, right? If it is absurd. All right, number 14 is neologism. Please say neologism. Neologism is a noun, a new word or expression. So Shakespeare, he coined many new words, didn't he? So this is a noun, so he practiced neologism. He would, if something didn't fit what he needed, he would just make a word into his sonnets, and it would be perfect. Some writers coin neologisms to confuse and impress their readers. And finally is hackneyed. Please say hackneyed. Hackneyed is an adjective, commonplace, overused, trite. Good as gold is a hackneyed expression. So the opposite of hackneyed would be fresh and imaginative. So hackneyed is something that we just hear all the time. It's just those things that are just common. All right. So we are writing, decorating our card. When we finish our card, guys, we need to go ahead and do the first 5 sentences for our vocab. This is on the document also. Vocab is the last thing listed there. So everyone will need to do this. And again, everyone who publishes every time, there'll be a couple of times this semester that Ms. Houghton and I will say, we're exempting those who always write their sentences every time they publish them on this document. And so that will happen. You need to make sure you do it every time. For those who are finished, I will come by and get your card. But let's make sure that we're writing the first 5. And if you're not finished, I'll come by later. I'll come by later. I'll put that, not rushing. If you're finished, I'll take it. I'll make sure you have your name on it too. Awesome. If you need more time, don't worry.
That's what my son said about an Asian man that put himself on fire.
Okay. What?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, yes. That is perfect. Welcome. Perfect example. All right, checking on my virtual kids. Everyone okay on virtual? So we're doing our card. You can email that to me or you can put the synonym in the chat, either one. Thank you, Jalen. I see that. Awesome. Thank you. That looks good. Thank you. Very good. Okay. By the way, guys, the vocab test scores were very good. They were very good, and that makes me happy. I will have them in eSchool today. I should have already returned them to you, but I was really pleased with those, with the scores. Now, the score, you could have made up to a 53 out of 45 because 5 points were bonus for the 5 terms. I went ahead and rounded, I gave everybody 3 points because the test was squirrely with the number here, and I just thought, I just want to make sure that made me feel better, so I will make sure that next time that won't happen. I think it was because I used the short answer instead of the paragraph option, and I tried to do the lockdown mode one day, which I don't know if I can do it or not, but anyway. So scores were great. Miss Little is coming on Wednesday to talk to this class about scholarships, about jobs after graduation, about getting into school, FAFSA, any kind of questions you have like that. She'll be here Wednesday to talk to the class. For my virtual, we will try to put my computer up where you can, wherever she's standing, you'll be able to see her. And then, of course, ask questions as needed as well. She typically takes about an hour. Of course, I'm not limiting her to that. But when she finishes, we'll continue with our rest of the 5 vocab words and then continue with Dr. Masalow's podcast until we finish. Friday is our library day. So Friday, we will be going first thing. I'm going to have a silent door that says go to the library. I will have a sitting chart that I will post because we have to have a sitting chart. I have to post it before we go. So you'll know where to go, and I'll even have sticky notes where you're just to make sure you know where you're supposed to sit on Friday. Friday, we're doing a whole lot. The whole time. We'll be taking STAR tests. We'll be getting familiar with the new library procedures to make sure we're abiding by COVID restrictions and all of that. So it will be a good time for all on Friday. So let's see. Can I take your card? You finish your card?
Yeah.
Very good. Rose, wow, she got already was. You gotta keep your slips written. When you do that. Yes. I think sentences are good too.
Did I step outside?
That she might. I don't think you have to do anything for that since you're just outside the door. So.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you. Yes, honey, you know what to do with the phone, right? These are excellent sentences. Thank you. Guys, I'm just checking sentences. Right.
That vocab later after
You, that's perfect. You
so
just
I can have time to study and everything.
absolutely. You just let me know.
Okay.
Hold. Color is just awesome. Oh no. I don't that's 15. I'm not sure.
They're all sticking in there.
You're stuck like.
No, I just stuck it.
My chest coming out.
And then I've got 3 right
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. She's like, fine?
Yeah.
Cool. You're welcome. It's still good to have physical things. Yes. Somebody say my name? Yes. Field. Gosh, you guys are doing awesome on these sentences. I'm even with Emily. You just had no trouble at all. Excellent. Let me commend you guys. These are excellent. While I'm thinking about it also, you all know that the ACT is going to be offered here. This is a big deal because you know that if you're testing it from home school, it just helps, I don't know, you're more comfortable. So I encourage you, if you're going to tweak your ACT score, or if you haven't started taking the ACT yet, please sign up at ACT.org. You know, this little has vouchers. So if you order a voucher, do that, take the test. It will take sign up though because there's just a number of seats available. Also, I've talked about ACT Academy. ACT, you can take a practice test, focus on what you really focus on, like it's math or a certain part of reading that'll help you do better, or English. So I encourage you to please do that. When you test, let us know. And this little we can answer any questions you have. Regarding, yes. Yeah. So cute. Yes, honey, do the phone, then the form, please. Not complete.
resume was not attached.
Oh,
I
okay.
printed it off.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, guys, also resumes. My goal is by the end of the week or sooner, I'll have those. I've already looked at 1B, so you're next, 2B. X-rays are coming right after that, so I'd like to be next at some office in 2 weeks, since they're like 80 degrees, so, if I do like 10 a night, I can do it over a week, so that is on my mind. I know a week, I've grade through, but I don't want to sit down and grade like 30 one night, that's just not a, I don't know, it's not good. It's not good for you or me, so I won't do that, but I'll do like 10 a night, so get those done. I'm putting a lot of grades in each school today, so got caught up. Hey guys, let's go ahead and read our sentences. Is everybody just about finished with writing your sentences? Y'all, okay, need a little bit more time? Emily, okay, sure. This class has done so wonderfully with the dad. Guys, be careful on recondite. Isn't it an adjective, right? It's not a noun.
Wait, can we talk about Richard?
Richard?
My X-53 text, which is very recognized.
Okay, recondite, which was very hard to understand.
Anybody else?
Well, now,
That one's good.
difficult to understand. I mean, that's,
It's not giving me the ability to provide.
it's not. Maybe if you get out of it and get back into it. Just try to get out of it and get back in. Guys, let's go ahead and read these. If you're not quite finished, just keep going. We gotta start, okay? Let's start reading. I prefer you to read your own, but if you are, I get it. If you don't want to read the first sentence, you won't want to read the rest of the day. So, my virtual people, we love it when you chime in because I don't know, we just miss your voice. It's kind of like a radio show. We can't see you, we can just hear you. Oops, actually, we can see you now, but hang on. All right, so everybody on there would like to read their sentences. Just let me know if you don't. I guess a thumbs down if you don't, thumbs up if you want to read your sentences. Vanna, you going to read your sentences? No? What about Hayden, Luke, Irene, Jalen? Okay. Luke, going to read your sentences? No? All right. So virtual doesn't want to read theirs today. All right. All right, so Luke, the dad derided his son for backing into the fence post. Again, what does deride mean? To mock. All right. Kaylee? Guys, let's listen. Let's be ready to go. Kaylee? The rude coach derided the players who missed their serve. Again, yes. Rhiannon? Good. And Jake?
The dad, I didn't put the ED.
That's okay.
The dad derided the son of Mr. Shaw.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. And Caitlin?
The other students derided their classmate for making a 65 on the same.
Perfect. Madison? Miss You don't want to read it? The parents derided their kids for fighting. And then Haley?
John would always deride them.
Good. And Caleb? The bully derided the little boy. Richard, the mockingbird, derided the little kids. Oh, well, that's mocks. That's cute. All right, Hunter?
The opposing players derided their opponent while in the game.
Good. And then Liz? The rude brother derided his little sister for coming into his room. Good. Kylie? Her younger brother was deriding his sister. And Ty? The boy's friends derided him for making a bad joke. Jax? Good. Not a good idea, but that's right. All right, Madison. The children derided their mom for telling them what to do. And Chris?
Everyone derided the kid's speech problem.
Very good. All right. And Irene writes that the employee was derided for her lack of work ethic. Cade?
The kids got derided at school for spilling their tea.
Good. And Zach? The boy was derided for falling off the horse. And JC writes, the worst kind of teacher is one that derides students for a simple mistake. All right. And now again, deride, to mock, right? All right. Censure. What does censure mean?
It means to criticize sharply.
To criticize sharply. Okay. So Haley.
The teacher censured the smart girl's paper.
Good. All right. Luke writes, the group of boys censured the girl on the playground. Hunter.
The men and women of the opposing parties censored their enemies.
Good. And Jake. Very good. Something, guys, these things happen a lot. I mean, you know that, and that's coaches, they have to correct, you learn by correction. Caleb. The principal censored the students' clothing. Good. That's an excellent example. Richard writes, my mother's censure made me change my ways. Good. Jax. Very good. Madison writes, the police officer censured the speeder. Good. Ty. The boy was censured by his teacher for talking to his friends. JC writes, the principal censured the girl for her multiple tardies and absences. And Kaylee. Guys, those are excellent examples of censure. That is, great. Chris. Okay.
Living a lifespan of censorment puts a lot of pressure on one.
Okay, sure, absolutely. And there again, that's good. Change the case. All right, Caitlin.
The mother censured her daughter so that for the decision she made in tolerance to.
Okay, right. Rhiannon. Perfect. And Liz, the teacher censured the students for disrupting the class. Cade.
The player censored his own film to get better at what he does.
Good. And Kylie. The girl's parents censored her outfit when she walked downstairs. And Zach writes, the speeding driver was censured by the cop. And Linda, do you want to read yours? The boy's parents censored his decisions on who to be friends with. Madison. The judge censured the man for stealing. And Irene writes, the child was censured by the teacher. Jaylyn writes, Gordon Ramsay censured the cooks very harshly. Guys, those are, I want to commend you on your sentences. They're fantastic. All right, gamble, which means what? Thought you just gambled if you went to Vegas. Yeah, you can gamble. This kind of gamble is great, gambling. All right, frolic around. Haley. Yes, they do. That's a perfect example of gambling. Hunter.
The young children gambled throughout the neighborhood.
Good. And Jake?
Turtle gambled around the pond.
Very good. Richard writes, my sisters always gamble when I'm not in the mood. Okay. And Ty, the children gamble around the playground. Rhiannon.
The dog gambled around.
Good. And Caitlin.
My siblings never sit still. They're constantly gambling.
Good. And Caleb writes, my sister gambles around the house. JC, the puppy, liked to gamble around the dog park. Jax. Good. And Madison writes, the kids like to gamble at the water park. Linda writes, the dogs like to gamble the cat around the yard. And Zach writes, the kids gambled at the playground. Madison Kirksey, the cows were gambling around the field. And Chris, my coworkers and I gamble around when we have free time. Irene writes, I gambled in the park. And Kaylee, the toddlers like to gamble in the bouncy castle. And Cade,
Sometimes kids gamble not gambling.
right. And Kylie, all the kids gambled at the birthday party. And Jalen, the boy derided, his sister. All right, immolate, which means what?
Sacrifice.
Yes, to sacrifice. And what is the rest of it?
Fire.
Yeah, okay, yes.
This one's not.
All right, and these are fantastic sentences. Haley, you want to read yours first?
Oh, yeah, mine's a Vampire Diaries.
Good.
Klaus. Emily.
Yes,
Emily and create more high.
excellent. And Ty writes, the boy was to be immolated by his town to please the gods. All right, and Hunter,
Bitcoin duck immolated itself as its own purpose.
perfect. And Rhiannon, all right, and Jake.
All of what immolates kids.
Okay, well, I mean, and I see yes, use it metaphorically.
Why did you put that?
He's using it metaphorically, but it works. I know what he's talking about. All right, Kaylee.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'll be read it. In the Bible, Abraham was to immolate his son on Mount Moriah. Very good. Madison, Hitler immolated the Jews. Caleb, many people immolate in their life. Again, I'm thinking taking that figuratively. Caitlin,
Older tribes sometimes use people as violations.
good. Immolation's good. That's just making the noun out of the verb. Madison, the church immolated the witches. And Liz, no, the man immolated his wife. JC, the Salem witch trials immolated young men in the town. Rashard, the Muslims immolated the kids for a ritual. Zach, the child immolated himself for the church. The child immolated herself for the bully's satisfaction. Kylie, the man immolated many people. The Aztecs used immolation to water their crops. And Jax, good. The people immolated the goat. Many religions often immolate sheep. And Cade, very, guys, those are just fantastic. That's excellent. Excellent. All right, recondite. Recondite means what? Hard to understand. Okay, Jax, will you please read your sentence? Perfect. Hunter. Perfect. And Caleb writes, the class is recondite to me, but not others. Jake. Perfect. Kaylee. You want to read yours? Perfect. Rhiannon. Good. Caitlin.
Was very
Recondite.
reconciled. Everyone was
Good. And Zach writes, the student's speech was recondite. Good. Kylie. The student could not recondite the test. The student could not. Okay. Madison George. Because it means hard to understand, right? So maybe the test was recondite and the Spanish teacher's speech was recondite, right? Help me. The girl was recondite about the lapse. Am I looking at that wrong? I mean, it means recondite means.
Yeah, how you're right.
Okay, so just we'll go back and we'll go back and fix that. So that's all
Well,
right.
I was gonna say, like, I cannot recognize the Spanish teacher, I couldn't understand what the Spanish teacher was saying.
You're right. The Spanish teacher her speech was recondite to me.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sometimes I have to stop and wrap my mind around, around sentences because they're so great. Okay. The boy's parents' explanations were recondite. He could not understand them. Linda, the English lesson was recondite to the little boy. JC, only a few people in the class understood the Reckon Dot math problems. Richard's makes sense. My ex left me through text, which was very Reckon Dot, hard to understand. The auctioneer was Reckon Dot, good. Her boss was Reckon Dot about his instructions. I love this, Kate, I love this. I want to get a poster in my room that says this. I love that, it's so great. That is fantastic. Okay, Chris. Even very simple music theory is a very Reckon Dot subject. Good. Guys, those are fantastic. I'm so excited. All right, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and freeze the screen, and I'm going to well, actually, I'm not going to freeze it. Everyone will need their computer out for this next activity, right? So everybody needs their computer. What you're going to do is you're going to need to go to the classwork and then go to journal classwork. All right. So guys, if you have not done the first, this is the prompt here from the first one we did, 831, and you answered those questions. So today we are going to label just 914, and you'll need to make a copy of this. Please don't write on this if I made you able to do it. We're going to take notes from Dr. Maslow's podcast. So what you can do is just date it and then number your facts. There'll be 5 facts per podcast. Okay? And so here's the thing.
We never did the journal part.
That's okay. So you won't have that first. You're just going to make a blank document. You know how to do that? You can. Well, if you do that, I mean, you can. That's fine. That's fine to do that. Or you can just click on the assignment and then go to turn in, or go to, you can make a new document that way, touch the second.
So we just need a document.
You need a blank document, you need to name a journal. So sorry, I don't know why we didn't get this in this class. I don't know why I didn't do that. Are we all the same boat now? Are we all doing it? Everybody's on their journal, getting their journal made. How are my virtual kids? Y'all okay on journal? You're going to this assignment and you're attaching it, right? When you click on it, okay? If you need help with that, let us know. Okay, now. Oh, that's lovely. I don't have it on here. It's supposed to be on here. Beowulf. Okay, I don't know why it's not on here. Okay, well apparently I didn't copy it over. Okay, guys, so I've got to go back to my 1B and copy something over. I thought I had already done that. So give me just a second to, there it is. Okay. It won't let me, never mind, guys. Okay, let me, on 1B. All right. One second. Let me do that. Miss oh my gosh. I thought I copied these on my classes and I didn't. Okay, so can I just like do is it gonna let me do that? And like if I cut the screen, I'm gonna try. I'm like so mad at myself. I thought I was ready, you know, and I'm not.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be such a big deal, but it's virtual and they gotta have it in case they have issues. Let me go. I gotta open up Classroom over here on this side. I need to go back to that split screen because I have it in 1B.
Gotcha.
I need to copy it to 2B. I just need to open over here again. This is what happens when I get nervous
Okay,
and I
so you can
panic.
go to 1B
Yes,
and then copy,
I'm
add it to
hoping.
2B.
That's
You
what I'm
can.
hoping. And then I'll have time to look at it.
That'd be nice.
Okay, it's fine. So then just do, like I need to do a create. And then I should just be able to carry it over from, right? Maybe.
They
Where
go,
is it?
I think, are you in 2B? You're still in 2B. You have both of them as 2B.
Yes, I do. Okay,
Then,
They don't, they're not open right now. They're not open.
right here.
okay,
Ooh, this is gonna take it off.
just click on it. Let's open it.
Unless it's posted yet. Oh no, I had it. Then once I just took it out,
And that doesn't have anything, does it?
it just did. Unless I took it out, it had all those things posted. Oh no, there it is. There it is. That's all the.
Okay, so
That's what I need.
where do you have that?
See, look, and that's what I don't
You
get.
just have it post. Okay, so for
Oh.
classes, so post. There you go.
I don't know. I guess I didn't post it 1B either.
Sometimes it like lags
I
when you
can't-
go to post. I've noticed that.
Because I was ready. And anyway, today, thank you for keeping me from up here sweating. I was sweating. I was like, no, what's going on? Okay, guys, now that I need to go to. Got this other one. All right, guys, so here we go. 2B. All right, guys, so here we go. Classwork. If we go to classwork, I'm hoping you will find. Still don't see it. Maybe it just didn't make the copy. Miss Helen, it's okay. It's not there.
I think you just had it open until it wasn't, hopefully.
Okay. I don't know what I've. Hang on, guys. We're okay. I had all this done like last week. Okay, so here we go looking at it. See, it should show up just like this. Beowulf. Topics from published post. I don't get it.
The screen, maybe.
Okay.
Right there.
You see it?
At the top,
Ah,
so it's under screen.
wonder why I made it a topic though. I'll do that later. I'll figure it out. So sorry. Okay, guys, I'm scratching my head. So if you'll go to the stream for some reason. So guys, my virtual people, shh, guys, listen, my virtual people, my people in class, sorry about that. I had this ready to go, I thought, but it just did not post. Miss Houghton was here, thank goodness, to help me straighten it out. You'll have to go to your stream, but during lunch, I will do my best to get this posted. I'm also going to make physical copies of Lesson 8 vocab for those who would like that. I will do that as well. So what we'll do, and the reason I'm showing you this is because virtual, just in case something comes up and you are disconnected or something happens, you will be able to go to that. Now, I'm not really sure why. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. So, guys, does everybody have their journal open?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to watch these. Dr. Mossolo teaches, he is at a private school in Nashville, and he actually teaches 10th graders, but they take British Lit in 10th grade, and he is able to speak Anglo-Saxon, and there's no way I'm going to try to, the expectations and try to fake that I can speak Anglo-Saxon. But anyway, it's really interesting information. There are 4 podcasts that are 15 minutes, and so we will take notes on each one. It'll prepare us for reading Beowulf. So I'm going to go ahead and start this one. And again, guys, the videos are posted in order. I was really ambitious thinking we'd get through 3 today. Last period, we just got through maybe half of the second one. That's the best we'll do today. So I'll update those dates as we get to them. All right, so here we go.
Hello, welcome to this BritLit 10 video podcast on Beowulf. This is lesson 1, introducing the Anglo-Saxons. Before we begin, I ask that you give the material the time and the attention that it deserves. Remember, I reserve the right to give you a pop quiz on any homework assignment, including this video podcast. Please resist the temptation to multitask and close all other programs on your computer, except those that you might use for note-taking. For homework, take notes as you watch and listen, stopping the video and reviewing it as necessary. Identify 5 points in the video that you think are especially important. Formulate 1 or 2 big ideas that you think are supported by the points that you identify. Be prepared to share your findings during class discussion and to apply what you've learned to your reading of the poem. Let's get started. BritLit 10 is a chronological survey of British literature. It begins with the Anglo-Saxon period, which spans from the 5th to the 11th century, and it moves forward in time with extended stops in the Middle Ages, the Elizabethan era of the 16th century, the Romantic era of the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and the Victorian era of the middle of the 19th century. The final stop is the early 20th century. By the time that school ends in May, we will have covered nearly 1,200 years of British literary history. The first text that we will read is an Anglo-Saxon epic poem called Beowulf. It was composed in the last 3 centuries of the first millennium, and it is one of the earliest examples of poetry in the English language. Beowulf is an exciting poem, but it is also a poem with a long and complex history. Before we begin to read Beowulf, we have to spend some time understanding who the people were that produced it. There were people living on the island of Britannia for nearly 5,000 years by the time that the Anglo-Saxons arrived there from Scandinavia in the middle of the 5th century. They would go on to dominate the island for about 600 years, until the middle of the 11th century. So before we turn our attention to one of the most important poems that they would produce, indeed, one of the most important poems in all of English literature, we have to ask ourselves, who were the Anglo-Saxons? And what kind of a culture did they have? The Anglo-Saxons were a dramatic warrior society that emphasized bravery, honor, and glory in battle.
Okay, now I'm going to stop every little bit and see if we feel like we write that down.
Yeah, what was those numbers? 450 CE to 1066 CE? Thank you.
You want me to go back? Thank you, Ms. Coates. Ms. Countdown and go back? No?
Yeah, please.
Usually. Further.
Indeed, one of the
Guys, again, we're just making a document that's going in the journal. That way I can check it with your points for this. Just 5 is all we require. You can do more, but it's the minimum 5. We have fish play now?
Just like 1 more second.
For 1 second, it's over there, right? No? Right?
For the most important poems in all of English literature, we have to ask ourselves, who were the Anglo-Saxons? And what kind of a culture did they have? The Anglo-Saxons were a dramatic warrior society that emphasized bravery, honor, and glory in battle. They were a patriarchal society based on the concepts of kinship, comitatus, and fraternity. Let's look at those three terms.
What do you call that? Oh, let me go back.
Kinship has a couple of different meanings. In one sense, it is the relationship between an individual and the other member.
They are.
Concepts of kinship.
They are when it's 2020, it is.
So we only need 5 of them.
You do. Thinking about kindergarten biology though, we had so many notes. And sometimes she goes so fast. It's writing frustration. Those names, words, just do it. Play. Is that okay?
Comitatus and fraternity. Let's look at those three terms. Kinship has a couple of different meanings. In one sense, it is the relationship between an individual and the other members of the tribe. More often than not, the members of the tribe were related, either by blood or by marriage. But even when they weren't, anyone who was in your tribe was considered to be your kin. And in this sense of the term, the single most important claim of kinship that one could make was to his king. There was another sense of the term.
And guys, when you take notes, you don't have to do it word for word if you want to. But if you want to paraphrase, that's all right too.
And that concerns one's ancestry as it was traced through the patriarchs of the family, your father, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers, and so on. In the Beowulf poem, we will see characters routinely proclaiming bonds of kinship, identifying themselves as Canute's cousin, or King Fubar's knight, or Fansmarn's son. Comitatus was a Germanic power arrangement in which a king was obliged to rule in consultation with his thanes. A thane is simply an Anglo-Saxon knight. The arrangement required thanes to swear absolute fidelity to their king, who, in exchange, would bestow upon his thanes land and money and jewelry and war gear and special privileges and other benefits.
The notes get a little bit harder to take because you start putting maps up there. I'm going to take notes with words, not perhaps. Yes. Minimum, yeah.
Or minimum.
There is no license. We get lunch at 10:55, yes. 10 minutes. You guys ready? If you want a little bit longer? A lot longer. You want some time?
Comitatus was, in a very real way, the glue that held Anglo-Saxon warrior society together. It bound the king to each of his thanes, it bound each of the thanes to the king, and it bound each thane to his fellow thanes. Each one worked for the well-being and the benefit of the nobility class, and for the well-being and the benefit of the tribe as a whole. What this meant is that Anglo-Saxon society was a deeply fraternal society, one based on the close social bonds of the men in the tribe.
Does everybody have 5 notes? Okay, so I'm probably not gonna stop unless you need me to. If you're taking a note and need me to stop, I will, okay? That's just for this video. There'll be later after lunch, there'll be another, we'll have to take a look at my notes.
These men lived together, and they worked together, and they died together. The actions and words of any individual reflected upon and affected the entire group. Anglo-Saxon warriors were motivated by 4 main things, which, in reality, was one thing: glory. Glory for one's king, glory for one's ancestors, glory for one's tribe, and glory for oneself. The pursuit of glory determined everything that they said and did, both on and off the battlefield. Because Anglo-Saxon society was a warrior society, violence was a fact of everyday life. The bonds of fraternity demanded that any death suffered at the hands of an outsider be avenged. Revenge killings were the order of the day, pitting tribe against tribe, and a single death could unleash a chain of violence that could go on for generations. And it was precisely because revenge killings were so routine that the Anglo-Saxons devised a rough form of justice that could stanch the flow of blood. This was known as weregild. Weregild was a
I'll go back. I had a couple people write that down. I'm going to go back. Is anyone
This was known
the previous screen or just the previous? Got it.
the Anglo-Saxons devised violence was a fact of everyday life. In things with
After this, I'll skip. Unless someone needs another time. So no one needs the next one? You need the next one?
he was a warrior.
Notes are really, put them in your own words, I think better, so it makes sense to you. But sometimes it's important to put down exactly what it's saying. You want those terms, because you say here she uses specific terms, you can certainly put them in your own words. everybody ready? I'm gonna try to take it to really hard. We're on your field, aren't we?
Victim of a murder or injury by the offender. The exact amount of the payment was usually tied to the victim's station in the tribe of which he was a part. The more important the victim, the more money the offender had to pay.
Want to go back? Yeah.
So the ties of fraternity was strong in Anglo-Saxon society, and when the money, the offender.
I'm just gonna pop it there and we can get ready to go lunch. Does that sound okay? And now we don't have a bell, do you? No, we have to wait until. I have an alarm.
It'll go off.
This time the alarm is supposed to go. Have a good lunch.
Thursday, or Thursday.
Find my kids. Here they are. Hey guys, it is our lunch break. So I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm leaving my link on, but I'm going to mute it and turn my camera off. I'll turn it back on at 11:25, okay? Have a good break. know.
It's hard to keep up with it.
Oh, I know, that's the hardest thing. And I'm still having to go like this. I'll make sure I'm doing all these things, you know, to make sure. Like, look right now.
They just don't yell it.
They don't
They yell it
it.
sometimes, and
Sure.
sometimes they don't.
And it's hard, and we have a hard time getting used to it. Like, it's just different. It so is.
Lunch is the worst part of it.
Lunch is. I know, we're not in there either having to monitor lunch.
I don't know why. Have we had any cases? Like, have they said anything?
I do not know. I think we've been doing really well compared to other school districts. I just don't know the numbers, you know, how, if it's confirmed and all that. They don't, well, I guess they just tell us what we need to know, and I haven't been told anything. So I guess I don't even know. Would you like a hard copy? It's nice to have, you know.
Okay. What was that? Yes, ma'am. I think I'm doing it. It's like these. Right, like it's actual.
But don't do that, because then you out of break.
Oh, here they are.
No, it's okay. Why did you let me forget?
Forget what?
Oh, okay.
I didn't.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. You look like a weak character. I got one of the boxes. Hey, look at us. Oh, you want to try? Oh. Do that one back. Oh, you feel breaking ankle for you.
Sure.
I'm like, wait. I'm not turkey.
What's gonna be video?
Okay, Master Turkey.
Produce a Saturday used to be called popcorn.
Pick up for left off
What's
for the video.
I mean, what's
Here you go, my please. Hi, wonderful, thank you. Right, guys, so does everybody have 5 facts, 5 notes? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, and just try to watch the rest. I would like to be able to get through, kind of we were one day, which is about halfway through the other one, so we got this one, and it's possible that you'll have 5 more to add on to that journal, so just keep that handy, okay? We're gonna go ahead and start with Weir Guild.
Vendor had to pay. So the ties of fraternity were strong in Anglo-Saxon society, and when the men weren't on the battlefield, they would spend their time in the king's mead hall. Now, mead is an alcoholic beverage. It's made with honey, and it has a pretty high alcohol content. Drinking was a very important part of Anglo-Saxon society, so it's not surprising that their favorite beverage was the namesake for the place where they spent most of their time. In early Germanic society, the mead hall was a building with a large central room where the king and his thanes would feast, drink, play games, and socialize with the women. The mead hall was a symbol of the king's power, and because it was where he spent most of his time, it was considered the safest place in the kingdom. The Anglo-Saxons were a polytheistic society, worshippers of pagan gods and goddesses taken with them from Scandinavia, gods and goddesses that were Norse in origin. On the left, we see Thor in the days before he became an Avenger. On the right, Freya, goddess of sexuality and fertility. Of the 7 days of the week, the names of 6 come to us from the Anglo-Saxon language. The word sun sounds the same in Anglo-Saxon as it does in modern English, the language that we speak. The same is true of moon, and from these two words, the Anglo-Saxons give us Sunundaich and Monundaich, Sunday and Monday. Tu was the Anglo-Saxon god of war, and he gives us Tuesdag, or Tuesday. Woden, the supreme Anglo-Saxon god, gives us Wodendag, or Wednesday. Thorsdag comes from, well, Thor, and Freya gives us Friasdag, or Friday. In Old Norse, one of Anglo-Saxon's several parent languages, the day after Friasdag is Lyrdagr, or washing day, not a particularly appealing name for the last day of the week. The Anglo-Saxons wisely set aside the Old Norse name, choosing in its place Saturnusdag, a day named after the Roman god Saturn. Sonadag, Monandag, Tuesdag, Wodensdag, Thorsdag, Friasdag. The names of 6 out of the 7 days of the week in modern English come to us from the Anglo-Saxons, worshippers of pagan gods and goddesses. And as pagans, the Anglo-Saxons had a deep connection to the concept of fate, or destiny as it was determined by those gods. The Anglo-Saxon word for fate is weird. The modern English word weird, as in strange or odd, comes to us from the Anglo-Saxon word for fate. Yet even as the Anglo-Saxons worshipped their pagan gods, they were also among the earliest converts to Christianity, a development that would have important implications for the Beowulf poem. As you might have noticed, the Anglo-Saxon language sounds a lot like German, which makes sense since their ancestral tribes were, as you will soon see, Germanic. And while the language that the Anglo-Saxons spoke is clearly Germanic in origin, it is also the very earliest form of English. The Anglo-Saxons' time as a society was relatively short, but they left behind the seeds of the most expressive and widespread language that the world has ever known. Finally, the Anglo-Saxons were great warriors, but they were also great artists. As you will learn in the next podcast, they were expert craftsmen of jewelry and metal, but they were masters of poetry and storytelling as well. With that as our overview, let us take a look at how the Anglo-Saxons came to the island of Britannia, for this has important implications for the Beowulf poem. The Anglo-Saxon period begins in the middle of the 5th century, and it ends some 600 years later in the year 1066. But the Anglo-Saxon story starts well before the 5th century. It starts 400 years earlier, in the middle of the 1st century. In the year 43, the Romans stage an occupation of the island of Britannia, an occupation that would last for the next 350 years. Roman historians writing at the time have little to say about daily life under Roman rule, but it is clear that the Romans built roads and cities, and archaeological data suggests that the Romans routinely intermingled and often married into the indigenous population, a tribe called the Britons, after whom the occupiers named the island soon after their arrival. In the early 5th century, the Roman Empire falls. It doesn't happen overnight, and its causes are many. The only cause that concerns us is the Germanic tribes that have assembled along the eastern frontier of the Roman Empire. The Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Vandals, the Lombardy, the Alemanni, the Burgundians, the Franks. These Germanic tribes had exerted pressure on the border for hundreds of years, and until the middle of the 4th century, the Romans had been able to keep them out. By the year 375, however, these Germanic tribes had begun to make successful raids into the Roman territories, and when the empire begins to fall in the decades that follow, the trickle of Germanic tribes that crossed the border became a flood. The Germanic tribes move ever westward. In the year 410, the Visigoths sack Rome, and over the course of the next several decades, the rest of the empire falls. As it does, the Roman military and the Roman administrators abandon the island of Britannia. By the beginning of the 6th century, most of what was once the Roman Empire was in Germanic control. Now, most of these Germanic tribes have moved westward across the continent, across the land. The three of them moved westward across the North Sea. The Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes arrived in Britannia from the part of Northern Europe now known as Scandinavia. Over the course of the next 5 centuries, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes would settle throughout central and eastern Britannia, where they would intermarry, wage war with each other, and drive the indigenous tribes ever westward into what is now Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. Over the course of several generations, the Angles and the Saxons merge, and then they absorb the Jutes. By the 7th century, a number of major and minor kingdoms emerge. Despite substantial and sometimes bitter personal and political differences, each kingdom thinks of itself as part of a single nation, Angleland, the land of the Angles. Anglish culture, Anglo-Saxon culture, would dominate Britannia for the next 4 centuries. In the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries, the Danes and the Vikings stage a series of raids that intend to take control of the island away from the Anglo-Saxons. To a degree, they are successful. The Danish at one point actually control a substantial amount of what was once Anglo-Saxon territory in a region then known as the Danelaw. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms unify under a single king, King Alfred, in an attempt to drive the Danes and Vikings off of the island. But over the course of the 10th and the early 11th century, it is uncertain that the Anglo-Saxons will prevail. But the matter is settled in 1066 when a different Germanic tribe, the Normans from the north coast of what is now France, expel the Vikings and the Danes from the island and conquer the Anglo-Saxons, thereby bringing to an end the Anglo-Saxon period in British history and the dominance of Anglo-Saxon culture. So, if that's who the Anglo-Saxons were, then what is the Beowulf poem about? It might not surprise you to learn that it is the story of a Germanic warrior. Its setting is Scandinavia in the 5th century, which is to say that it takes place in the part of the world that the Anglo-Saxons' ancestors left at precisely the time that they left it to come to the island of Britannia. Beowulf, as you will learn, is a warrior's warrior. He fights monsters and dragons. He makes women swoon, and he commands the respect and admiration of every man he meets. He fights bravely in pursuit of glory for himself, for his people, for his ancestors, and for his king. That concludes this Britlit 10 video podcast. In lesson 2, we will build upon the knowledge of this podcast to take a look at the history of the Beowulf poem.
Okay,
Take care until then.
Okay, so we will continue that. I just want to review, before we start the second video today, you'll have to take an additional 5 notes. What are some things you learned? What are some things, the facts you put down? Yes, Chris.
Days of the week thing.
The days of the week. All right. What about a thing? Good one. Good. What else? That's good to know that this guy's things is going to come up. Beowulf, we'll read about things all the way into Macbeth, right before Christmas. So it's good that you know what a thing is. But what else?
What about how the Med Hall is the safest place in the kingdom? I thought that was pretty.
It is. It's the safest place in the kingdom. And when we read in Beowulf that it's compromised, that's very scary. It is. They would go there and brag about all their battles they've won, hang out with the ladies, and drink mead, the alcoholic beverage. All right, what else? What kind of society was Anglo-Saxon society? Yes. They worship pagan gods. What else? Patriarchal, which means what? Patriarchal versus matriarchal. So what's patriarchal? Ruled by the men. Father, grandfather, great grandfather, right? Matriarchal be the women. Right, what else? What is weird? W-I-R-D. It means faith to them, yes. What about comitatus? Anybody right know what comitatus is?
Power, right?
German power arrangements. And so what did it mean? What is it doing? So the night we pledge, I'm gonna do whatever the king tells me to and be faithful to him. He's gonna take care of me financially and all that. Absolutely. Yes, yes. So they fought for, who all they fought for? It's like 4 different things, entities. Themselves, okay?
The ancestors, the tribe, and the Bluetooth.
Absolutely. All those things, those 4 things. Great. Okay, so guys, second video, let's go ahead and try to, we knock out our 5 today. That means Wednesday after this little visit, we can just kind of sit back on, and maybe not have to take notes on Wednesday. We'll get them taken today. So again, the videos start out with your best notes because it's just, they're up there on the screen written out. It's really nice. So here we go. We'll start. We will not finish this one, but we'll start it. So again, 5 notes under journal.
In this computer graphic, you can see the impression that the home made on the
Oh, what? Always goes back there.
video podcast on Beowulf. This is lesson 2, the history of the Beowulf poem. Before we begin, I ask that you give the material the time and the attention that it deserves. I reserve the right to give you a pop quiz on any homework assignment, including this video podcast. You may also be held responsible for this material on more substantial assessments, such as essays, tests, and the semester exam. Please resist the temptation to multitask and close all of the programs on your computer except those that you might use for note-taking. For homework, take notes as you watch and listen, stopping the video and reviewing it as necessary. Be prepared to share your findings during class discussion and to apply what you've learned to your reading of the poem. Let's begin. We are going to start today with a reminder that Britannia had been part of the Roman Empire since the 1st century. When the empire falls in the 5th century, a host of Germanic tribes pour in across the eastern frontier. Most of these tribes go west across the continent, across the land, but 3 tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, go by sea, sailing from what is now Scandinavia and arriving on the eastern coast of Britannia in the middle of the 5th century. Over the course of the next 2 centuries, these 3 tribes fight each other and intermarry. Eventually, a number of major and minor kingdoms emerge. These kingdoms are independent, but their people also assume a collective identity, referring to their home as England and to themselves as Anglish. We know them as the Anglo-Saxons. They and their culture would dominate the island until the middle of the 11th century.
We might have time for one more. No.
Beowulf is the story of a Germanic warrior who lives in Scandinavia in the 5th century. It was first told by the Anglo-Saxons sometime in the 8th century.
I'll try to take any more today. That'll be all. So we'll start there, after Ms. Little, you all talk to her on Wednesday. So we meet in here, and y'all, I'm gonna have your, sitting chart in the library made up, and I'll have it posted, that way you'll know where to sit Wednesday, not Wednesday, Friday. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Houghton, so much. Give y'all a little bit of time to get situated.
Hey,
I'll make sure I have your card.
Come out Christianity, because they do criminalize. It's legal.
I'm so ready to go home. I'm fixing fish and new.
Convenience was illegal. The king is.
What you got?
No, he said, no, I have to do
Okay, so my virtual kiddos, we are finished for the day. I'm not going to do anything else. We're just waiting on the bell. Y'all have any questions, let me know.